It was a quiet evening when Emily found herself sitting on the porch, her fingers wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. The wind was gentle, brushing past her face as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon. Her mind, however, was not at peace. The house felt emptier than usual. For years it had been a home filled with laughter, music, and the steady sound of paws padding across hardwood floors. But tonight, everything felt different. There was a hollow space in her chest, a yearning she couldn't fill. Her dog, Charlie, had passed away 2 months ago, but it felt like it had only been yesterday. The grief was still fresh, even though she tried to mask it behind a brave face. The years they had spent together were stitched into the very fabric of her life. Charlie had been there through everything: her first heartbreak, the loss of her job, the time she felt utterly alone. And in return, she had tried her best to be there for him, through every rough patch, every midnight walk, every cuddle on the couch after a long day. Now, in the silence of that evening, Emily couldn't help but wonder, what made their bond so special? Why did it feel like Charlie's absence had left a permanent void in her heart? What was it about the connection between a dog and its owner that went beyond simple companionship? Emily first met Charlie when he was just a tiny, trembling puppy, no more than 8 weeks old. She had been browsing the adoption website for months, unsure whether she was ready for the responsibility. But something about the photo of the small golden retriever, pup with soft brown eyes, drew her in. She didn't know it at the time, but that decision was about to change her life in ways she could never have anticipated. She remembered the first time she held him in her arms, his tiny body wriggling in excitement as if he already knew they were meant to be together. That day, Emily became his world, and he, in turn, became hers. They spent hours exploring the world together, running in the park, going on hikes, lying in the sun while Emily read her books. Charlie was more than a pet. He was a constant companion, always by her side, sensing when she needed space and when she needed a shoulder, or rather, a furry head to lean on. As the years passed, their bond deepened. Charlie became not just her dog, but a member of her family. When she had bad days at work, he would curl up next to her, his soft fur offering a comfort that words couldn't. If she ever cried, he would nuzzle her face, his eyes full of empathy, as though he understood that sometimes the heart needs healing in ways that go beyond the human experience. One evening, after a particularly rough day, Emily had slumped onto the couch, the weight of the world pressing on her chest. Charlie had gently walked over to her as if to check in, his tail wagging with a calm assurance. She hadn't been able to speak. Her voice was too caught in the tightness of her throat. But without hesitation, Charlie jumped up on the couch and rested his head on her lap. His steady presence calmed her, and in that quiet, unspoken moment, she realized that Charlie knew her in ways no one else did. Dogs are often described as man's best friend, but Emily had come to understand that their relationship went far beyond mere friendship. It was a silent, instinctual understanding that neither needed to explain in words. Charlie's communication was subtle, but it was always there, a nudge of his nose when she needed a hug, the way his eyes softened when she looked at him after a long day, or the way his tail wagged faster when he sensed she was happy. Sometimes it felt as though he could read her emotions before she even recognized them herself. There were mornings when she woke up feeling inexplicably down, and Charlie would come over to her, his tail wagging gently, his head tilted in a way that seemed to ask, "Are you okay?" On those days, Emily would smile weakly, and the simple act of him being there would lift her spirits. Even if just a little, Emily had always thought of herself as someone who valued independence and self-reliance. She'd never been one to lean on others too heavily. But Charlie had a way of breaking down those walls. He had taught her that vulnerability was okay, that It was okay to let someone in, especially when that someone was a creature who loved her unconditionally. Without judgment, one particular memory stood out in her mind, a moment that encapsulated their silent communication. Emily had been sitting at her desk, working late on a project that was weighing heavily on her. The clock had struck midnight and fatigue was starting to settle in. She barely noticed Charlie quietly slipping into the room until she heard the soft click of his nails on the floor. She looked down to find him standing by her side, his eyes staring up at her with a quiet intensity. Without thinking, she reached down to pet him, but before she could pull her hand away, Charlie nudged his head against her leg, a gentle but firm request for attention. It was a silent plea for connection, for a break from the work that had consumed her. It was as though he was telling her, "It's okay, you don't have to keep going, I'm here now. Let's just be together." That simple moment, that small, tender interaction was one of the most profound experiences of Emily's life. It reminded her that love and trust didn't always need words. Sometimes they were just felt. It wasn't always easy. Life had a way of throwing curveballs, and Emily's relationship with Charlie wasn't immune to the challenges of time. There were periods of stress when work demanded too much, when emotions ran high, when it seemed like the world was too overwhelming to handle. But no matter what, Charlie never wavered in his devotion. He was always there, the rock she didn't know she needed. One particularly difficult time was when Emily went through a breakup. It was a relationship that had ended abruptly, and the hurt was deep. For days, Emily couldn't bring herself to leave the house. She would lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like a part of her had been ripped away. Charlie, sensing the shift in her mood, would never leave her side. His presence was constant, and the way he would curl up next to her on the bed was a comfort that no words could replace. During that period, Emily learned something about the nature of love and companionship. She realized that while human relationships could be complicated, a dog's love was simple. Charlie didn't care about her flaws, her mistakes, or her insecurities. He just loved her entirely and without condition. And that, Emily understood, was something rare, something she would never take for granted. The years passed, and eventually Charlie began to show signs of aging. His once energetic body slowed down, his playful barks became fewer, and his tail wagged with less enthusiasm. Emily's heart ached as she watched her best friend grow older, knowing that the time they had left together was growing shorter. In the final months of Charlie's life, their bond was stronger than ever. Emily knew that Charlie was ready to say goodbye, but she wasn't ready to let go. She spent every moment she could with him, cherishing the simple acts of companionship, the soft nuzzles, the quiet walks, the peaceful moments spent in each other's company. The day Charlie passed, Emily was holding him in her arms, just as she had when they first met. He looked up at her one last time, his eyes filled with trust, and she whispered to him, "I love you, Charlie. You're the best dog in the world." His tail gave a final, gentle wag, and then, in the quiet of the room, he was gone. The days after Charlie's death were some of the hardest Emily had ever known. The emptiness in her heart felt like a chasm that couldn't be filled. But as she sat on the porch watching the sunset, she realized something. The bond she had shared with Charlie didn't end with his passing. It lived on in the memories, in the love that they had given each other, and in the silent, unbreakable trust they had shared. Emily smiled softly as she imagined Charlie's tail wagging, his eyes bright with joy. He might not have been there in body, but his spirit was forever intertwined with hers. And in that quiet moment, Emily knew one thing for certain: no matter where life took her, the love between a dog and their owner never truly fades. A forever connection, bound by tail-wagging trust. Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. The final moments of an auction filled with incredible opportunities and unforgettable pieces. The clock is ticking, and now is the time to make your mark. Whether you're bidding for yourself, a loved one, or for a cause that touches your heart, your bid matters. Every item in this auction is more than just an item. It's a chance to bring something extraordinary into your life, something rare, something special. Don't let this moment slip away. Think about the memories you'll create, the excitement of winning, and the satisfaction of knowing you made the right choice. I see those hands. I know there's still one last bid in you. Whether it's your first or your last, raise your paddle now and make a difference. Remember, your bid could be the one that seals the deal. So go ahead, take a chance, and be a part of something incredible. The auction closes soon. Don't miss out.